Started then. Lesson 27. This is identifying misleading representations in data, so we're going to figure out how to identify those misleading representations. So we have to be able to see our graphs first and foremost. So on page 159, example 1, take a look at that graph. We're going to figure out why that might be misleading and how it could be misleading. So we have to remember some of our graphing skills here in order to do this. So here's our graph. It's the number of members at Ronaldo's Health Club, and over here on the left side we're noticing our titles. It's number of members, so they have the number of members with interval 100. Over here at the bottom they have the time frames going by month from January all the way to June. Why might this data be misleading? It doesn't start at 0. What does this little break right here tell us that they're doing? So they're starting at 600 because why? Why would they say that they're not going to start at 0? Why would they say that? If a club's membership was at 0, what would the club be? Closed down. Okay, so this is not from the beginning of time, obviously, right? It's only like a 6-month period. So when we're looking at this set of data, he's only going from January to June after he's already been open for a while. So it's obviously not going to start down there at 0. So notice that this doesn't trail down to the origin at all. It starts right up here at 600 and some change. Okay, so this might be misleading because it does not start at 0. And then we look at how the numbers increased. It went from 600 to 750 in 2 months, which is an increase of 150. But looking at the chart, it looks like it skyrocketed, which in the grand scheme of things, it probably did, up to 300. But if we did our increments and we had our graph to actual size without a break, this increase would look much smaller. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. Looking at example 2, this one gives us a bar graph. Okay. This is listeners' music preference, and it looks at 4 different categories: rock, hip-hop, and pop, then others. So on the left-hand side we see number of listeners. What is our increment? 500. Okay, and then at the top is our title. Remembering what I expect to see on your graphs. Okay, I expect to see a title, and a title. There's 3 labels that go there. Okay, and then I expect your increment to make sense. Does this increment make sense? No, it doesn't. In order to better represent the differences in this data, because it jumps so much from 500 to 1,000, you can't really tell the difference between rock and pop, if there is a difference at all. And then furthermore, over here to hip-hop, it's just barely below, but we don't know if that's 10, 20, 30, 40 people. And then other looks like it could be way farther down. We don't know if that's 100, the difference between rock and other. We don't know if that's 100 or if it's just 85. Okay? So it's misleading because the increments are so large. I think a better graph may have been to run a break, start it at 500, and then increment it by 100s up. Okay? Any questions there? These are rather fast notes, guys. Okay, looking at this circle graph. So, first of all, let's go over what this graph is displaying. The circle graph shows the number of types of sandwiches a deli sells in one day. Explain why this graph may be misleading. Okay, so it says this is the number of this type of sandwich that was sold in a day. Okay, why might this graph be misleading? If we go over to Subway, let's think Subway. Okay. Subway sells tuna sandwich, a turkey, a ham, and a roast beef. Why would this chart be misleading for the number of sandwiches that they sell in a day? Yeah, it doesn't specify that it's all of the sandwiches that they sell, just of a specific type. So it's misleading because there should be a category that says other to include all of the rest of the sandwiches. Maybe these are their top sellers, and they didn't include the other, so we don't know if they sell more sandwiches than this or not. My personal preference isn't any of those, so I want my sandwich. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, this one's pretty much always, there needs to be an other category. Okay, if there's not an other category, there's pretty much always going to be some sort of misleading representation there. Alright, so now we're going to see this application of television prices. Again, average television price, dollars, and then the years are down on the bottom. Okay, normally we don't write years on the bottom if we're writing out the year. Okay, it makes sense just to know that that's the year. So an electronics store created a graph to show the average selling price of a television each year. So again, I want to look at a few things. I want to make sure that my bottom years, my timeline, is accurate. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. Okay, so it goes in order. It doesn't go 2000, 2001, 2005, 2008, and it's making a steady increment, so I can see from one year to the next without a big jump. So that's good. Over here, I want to look at my increment. My increment here is 500. Again, that's a large increment. This entire space from 1,000 to 1,500 isn't even used. So it's looking like that piece of the graph is useless. Okay, so looking at average television prices, it looks like it goes from somewhere around 750 up to probably 900 area. Okay, so why would a television store or an electronics store want to make a graph that looks like it barely increased? Why would they do that? Right, they want to make it seem like it doesn't cost very much. So if they blow up their increments, it looks like it didn't raise that much. But in reality, the prices of TVs over the last 5 years have increased over $200. Okay? Which might be a big difference to a consumer. So basically, they're trying to trick the consumer into thinking, wow, the price really hasn't rose that much. Look at this graph. Okay? Any questions on that one? Okay, so the misrepresentation here is that our increments were too large. We should have probably thrown a break in here and broke it down by the hundred. So that's basically what they did in the next graph. So this is the same graph represented with a break in it and then going up by increments of 100. So now look at the drastic difference from 2000 to 2005. If I seen this graph at a television electronics store, I would probably be less apt to buy a TV thinking that the prices rose more at this store than at another store. Okay? Questions thus far? That's really it, guys. It's just a bunch of talking, not a whole lot of written notes. Is there anything that y'all guys want to double check before we go on? Speak now, forever hold your peace.